I took a lot of years to dream about creating and just not creating. I would rather have those years back. What my biggest aha moment was nailing down one social media channel. For me, that was LinkedIn. I was not going to go on Instagram. I was not going to go on X. The reason why that was an aha moment for me because
Varun Nigandhi is the founder and CEO of Beyond Grad, a business he launched as a side hustle. After amassing a following of over 75,000 on LinkedIn and testing many offers and funnels to become an expert, he now runs Beyond Grad full-time as a successful revenue-generating business.
Looking at the sales funnel as a service funnel, them coming to a boot camp, the high ticket offer, a one-on-one support. I would like to share things that make me look smart. Any posts that have, which is where that viral growth comes from.
Why now? What was it that made this the perfect moment for you to leave your job and ultimately go full time into, we would have called your side hustle, and now we'll just call your hustle, your thing?
Yeah, it is my hustle now. The side hustle has become the hustle. It's an interesting question, the perfect moment. And I think it was the perfect moment for me because of evidence as well as imperfection. So those were the two reasons. So it wasn't a perfect moment as such. So let me take that on first. It was imperfect because after like 14 years in our automotive career, loving it and that affording us all this beautiful life that we have, a lot of career success. And I had started as an entry-level engineer at this amazing company, became a partner at that company. The founding partner decided to kind of move away from the company last year. So that kind of became a force function for me. So it was in a way an imperfect moment because I would have loved a runway of a year or two more because automotive engineering is going through this flux of which technology are we going to use? Are we going to stick with engines? Is EV? Everybody is just confused. And we were in advanced engineering. It had become a tough business, at least in my eyes.
Yeah.
So the option was continue to run that business as now the new founding partner, or get a job in the automotive industry, or do something of my own. And that's where the second reason came in, that do something of my own. I had evidence that last year from the side hustle, I had earned half of my engineering salary by putting in about 20 to 30 hours of my week. So the thought was, can I take a sabbatical or a break from automotive engineering? Because I knew it was a bit of time. I was losing passion for it, and see whether this can sustain us as a family, but then even grow, because the whole intention of starting a side hustle was to scale my income and not have the income be attached to the hours that I was putting. So in a way, this perfect moment was 10 years in the making.
Incredible. And I think with that, though, have you already made that leap, or are you in the process of making that leap?
I have already made the leap.
Okay.
The reason why I might have been softer in saying that is because the jury's still out, just like any entrepreneurship venture. The jury's still out.
Yeah, I got it. That makes sense. You always know if something, came to it, you have options. But in this scenario, I think, as you said, if you were making half from what would amount to 20, 30 hours a week, arguably, if I did the math and knew what you were probably putting into your other job, it means you should be able to just work 40 to 60 a week, and, you'd be working less hours, but still making, what the income would have been before. So it makes a lot of sense.
And was that the goal from the beginning, Varun? Like, I need to match my salary before I say peace out?
100%. A lot of it came from a mentor. I think Michael mentioned Ramit Sethi. A lot of it came from him, like the guidance of making sure that you are earning equal to your job, or at least as much as you can, before you make the transition completely. Because one thing that nobody tells you is that it just takes a while to first create offers that work. And then when they work a little, you find something that you don't like about it, so you tweak the offer. It's just a process. And I don't think I've still landed on an offer that I think can be a kind of exponential growth curve. So that takes time. So the intention was always, can I get a full-time job salary out of this before I make the switch? But the imperfection of the perfect moment kind of made me decide, okay, let's do this. Had a conversation with my wife. She was on board. And that was a big reason why we jumped in.
And is your offer now that you're doing, is it more of a one-on-one coaching cohort, an actual like program with videos? Like, what does it look like?
That's a great point because this is something that I feel needs to talk about more often, which is if you are starting what I call a knowledge startup, where you are sharing your knowledge to people and helping them go from point A to point B. There are many different vehicles you can use to teach people as well as earn an income. And those vehicles are digital courses, cohorts, coaching. Some of these three are in combo. I did try the digital courses right in the beginning, like 2 years back. And what I realized there was that you need volume because it's a smaller price product to kind of make an income equal to your 9 to 5. You need more volume, which you don't have in the beginning. I still don't think I have that.
If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, be sure to click on the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click on the bell. It lets YouTube know you want to support the This Is the Way podcast, and it helps spread the word, and we greatly appreciate it. And now, back to the episode.
The next one is I
Sorry,
started doing
you,
cohorts.
sorry to cut you off, Varun. It's interesting you said because you have a comparison to others. You have a pretty large following on LinkedIn. 75,000 people are kind of listening to you and look at you as a thought leader. But you still think you don't have a big following to do volume sales. Why do you say that? I'm curious.
Typically, 1% of your audience converts into a paying customer. So 75,000 following. I think following and obviously that 1% does not always match. I think the closer match is 1% of your email subscribers or 1% of your qualified leads actually end up buying your product. So let's even take like 1% of 75,000 is 750. Let's assume 500 as the conversion rate. If I am going to launch a $100 digital course, which right now 100 to 350 is what people would pay for a flat out just digital course without anything else, that's 50,000 bucks. So even at this volume, which 75,000 followers gained across 3 years, some of them kind of are in a different place in their journey. It's hard to make a core digital product work as your only source of revenue for your business.
That's a great way to break it down.
So then we mentioned too, you were mid-thought before. You were talking about the different approaches, trying to remember where you were before. I don't know if you remember either.
Yeah. So I tried courses first. And at that time, I had a 6,000, 7,000 following and on LinkedIn. And that converted into like 6 people bought that product.
All right.
Now, but I think again, you have to just throw offers out there in the beginning. And that was my first offer. I realized, okay, this needs tweaking. So the next version, I created a coaching product that was helping people, especially students, international students, find jobs in the US. Now that went well. The first launch was, I think, $10,000. At that time, I had a 25,000 following on LinkedIn. And that was where I was like, okay, this cohort thing works. But then I also wanted to try coaching because it is higher priced than cohort. So last year, I transitioned from that one offer I made from cohort into this entire coaching model because that's the reason why I wanted to say why it's important to share, which is the fastest way to replace your 9 to 5 income often is a coaching product. People are willing to just pay you higher for one-on-one coaching if they vibe with your content, if they think you are helpful. Then people just want like, okay, help me get through this.
Yeah.
And that's why last year, when I said half of my engineering income, all of that was from one-on-one coaching, either like deep calls and everything, or the other version was just a few calls, but a lot more asynchronous work with people.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then for you to get to that, what is your approach when it comes to, obviously you have content you're putting out. LinkedIn is your main place that you're, marketing or providing value to the public, I guess would be one way to put it. Is that right?
Right now, it's the only channel.
Okay, no email, or do you have any email?
I do have email.
Okay, got it. But LinkedIn's the majority of it. Okay.
Right.
So in that scenario, then what does that look like how often do you post? And then how are you engaging people? Is it DMs? Are they coming through a lead magnet to you? Like, what does that look like when you then take it to the next stage of possible coaching?
Right now, it's all inbound
Okay.
using content that I write every day.
Mhm.
Last month, or not last month, sorry, earlier this year, I created a new cohort offer. So this is my second offer that, again, I thought was good validation for, I think I had 4 students, which was good validation for me. I just want to make it better and better. It was called 21-Day Interview Mastery, a 21-day cohort based program where we just help you achieve mastery in your behavioral interviews. So that and the coaching is what I'm trying to use as my vehicle for this year. And most of it, I am banking on it being inbound because I just feel that is a higher conversion rate. Although this is a discussion that should be had, is where does outbound come into the picture? And if it's necessary to for the survival of the business, then I would do outbound. But you see
Okay.
how my language is towards it, which is
Yeah.
I would prefer people raise their hands up, even if meekly, to say, "Hey, want your help," and
Yeah.
then I would love to at that point kind of continue the conversation in the DMs. Generally, happen in the DMs for the cohort based program. They make a decision from the sales page for the one-on-one coaching, which is a much higher ticket offer. Then we do a complimentary call to make sure both of us are the right fit for each other, and then they decide or we decide whether to move forward or not.
Is your kind of liking or preferring inbound more than outbound? Is that where you're kind of like, I don't like doing like hard sales? Is that the reason, or like I'm just curious why shy away from outbound and prefer inbound?
I just feel the intent is different when I'm doing outbound. It's again for the survival of the business, it makes sense. But for me, I don't feel that it's salesy. I have now accepted as an entrepreneur that sales is going to be a skill that I need to learn. I need to continue to develop, and I'm enjoying it really. Michael and I actually talked about this in one of the comments. Is that everything is sales? I'm actually enjoying the process. So it's less of that and more of, is this the best use of my time? Somehow, even if it might be incorrect, I feel improving my LinkedIn content in the hours that I would have done outbound will still help me in the longer run, if not in the shorter run.
And I'm actually curious on that too. By the way, I completely relate to that because for me, it might be though a little bit of I don't like to feel pushy sometimes for folks, so that's why the inbound versus outbound does make a bit of a difference. But for you, your content, you obviously have continued to grow. I know when we had you on before, you were I think near 30 maybe, and that was after an initial unlock that you had. But what is it that you think has really helped you to grow your presence on LinkedIn as much as you have? Because pretty soon you'll be hitting that 100,000 marker. And in the LinkedIn world, that's like, at least 1 million in a lot of other platforms. Like it's different, LinkedIn versus what you'd have on YouTube or Instagram.
Michael, I'm so impressed that you remember that first unlock that I had that took me to 30K. Honestly, since then, it's been a grind. I'll
Oh,
be
really?
just completely honest.
Oh,
LinkedIn has been a grind. I haven't found it easy as I did with the first unlock. Now,
yeah.
with the first unlock, just to remind everybody who's just listening to us for the first time, I was writing content consistently, trying to be value added, but the unlock came with idea generation. So I did reverse engineering of all the top profiles in my niche,
Hmm.
see what they were writing about, how they were writing about things. And then I used 2 strategies of my own. One, what is my angle to it? What is my experience? So my angle was one way to use the same idea, but come at it fresh. And then the other was something that a person called James Altucher calls idea sex, where you merge 2 ideas and you kind of share
Yeah.
that. And it's again a novel thing to do. So that was the first unlock, reverse engineering,
Yeah.
great ideas. Since then, I haven't, like, it's been a decent growth. So I'm at 74,000, getting close to 75. But I found it harder to find the big unlocks. I found it harder to kind of say, okay, now I understand the algorithm. What has remained constant is creating just really valuable content, which people generally would need to pay for other
Mm.
creators, like frameworks, cheat
Yeah.
sheets, checklists, examples, specifics. I tend to want my post to be very action oriented, very strategic, very, okay, I read this, I know what I need to do next.
That's interesting as you say it that way, because I will say that is for me the post that definitely get more love and support is when I'm like, oh my gosh, they're giving this, away for free. It's so valuable. But do you ever get concerned, or have you already, maybe that you're going to give away all your best content, and suddenly it's like, why would people even work with you anymore?
No, I think, and this is not something that I learned on my own. This is just something that my mentors taught, is that
Hmm.
you give away your best stuff for free. What I've realized in this whole content game is that what works on social media is different than what actually people need to make a change in their life. Like, this is the whole game about give people what they want, in then give them what they need. And a lot of times the content that gets a lot of traction, that gets a lot of engagement, is just a discovery type of content, that then you are able to kind of go deeper into framework strategies when you have courses that they can
Sure.
come into.
That makes sense. So it's more of the giving away a lot of the education for free. It's the implementation side of it that then when you engage with people, that ultimately is where the coaching and the income comes in. So
Yeah, and so far I've tried a lot of like cohorts and coaching where I'm spending time with people. So that has been a huge differentiator between the online content and the courses and the coaching, because I'm
yeah,
there working with you on your stuff. Now,
yeah.
when I do move on to more and more group cohorts or trying a digital product again sometime, I don't know how that would change, and my mind would change at that point as
Yeah.
well.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll be curious to see too. For you right now, the tech stack that you use when you are approaching the cohorts, what does that look like for you?
Very simple. I use a tool which I call the Swiss Army knife of online businesses. I use Kajabi.
Okay. Yeah.
Kajabi is my course platform, my website builder, my email email service provider, my offers and payment system, all of it combined.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I used Kajabi before. I admit I've moved over to Go High Level
Yeah.
now, which is they're very similar
Okay.
platforms. But yeah, no, Kajabi's. I hear a lot of people who like and use Kajabi. It's got kind of it all built into one. Now, for you though, are you using their community aspect too, or do you use something different?
Yeah, I use their communities for my cohorts
Okay,
and my coaching as well. So everybody who I coach also get access to my community. So I'm using their native tool. I'm not using any community tool like Slack
right.
or School or something like that.
Yeah,
I haven't found the need for it yet. Maybe in the future.
yeah, that's good. And then what about for your one-on-one clients? What does that communication look like?
It's all again through that community. Like, there's
Mhm.
a one-on-one chat aspect to it.
Yeah.
It's like Circle. It's very close to
Yep.
Circle if you've had experience with it. So all of it is done through that, and then we have one-on-one calls through Zoom. The other tools that I use extensively are ChatGPT Plus. Then I use Authored Up for LinkedIn to kind of help me manage all my content, have a clean formatting. I use Canva for design, Canva Pro for design,
Mhm.
and Loom for recording videos. Those
Okay.
That's kind of like my major tool stack. Obviously, as somebody who has two first languages, my mother tongue and English. I call it two first languages because we studied in English, but
Yeah.
we are still confused a bit. I rely heavily on Grammarly as well. Full disclosure.
That's good. I know I like to leverage Hemingway sometimes to help me, like, I don't know if you've used that one, but yeah, it's like, help me break this down in a more simplistic way, because the way I right is not always that. So sorry, Art, were you going to say something?
I was just going to ask, more of a, non like tactical question. When you look back 3-4 months ago, you're waking up and thinking about your corporate job. Now you wake up, you don't think about that. So I'm just curious, how does that feel for you? Like when you're waking up, since it's so fresh, is there the sense of nervousness? Is it pure excitement? Do you ebb and flow between all these types of emotion? Like, what does it feel like waking up today? Knowing that you don't have to report to a 9 to 5. It's all on you.
A lot of different emotions, like you just said. I was in a very good 9 to 5 when it came to flexibility, the kind of boss I had, and the kind of clients that I was working with. I was extremely fortunate. So it didn't feel like I was carrying like a heavy backpack that once you kind of remove the backpack after you come home from school and you're like, wow, I was carrying a load on my shoulders. So it was never, I never felt that way when I transitioned. What change happened is that I am somebody who can procrastinate very easily. I am not a great manager of myself. So those are the two things that I think I am trying to improve on. For procrastination, I'm still working on it, but I try to reduce like every kind of distraction for using website blockers like YouTube. That's my Achilles heel. And then on the on the side of managing myself, I think what I've realized is sometimes I need to just announce a date to launch something and just
So true.
work from that day, even if it might mean that some not sleepless but some late nights, then so be it. But that's how I've gotten accountability. If it's an accountability on a piece of paper, I can easily move it down the
Mm-hmm.
line.
It's a That's a good point there. I think maybe from now on here, and Art, and I'll do this to you. I'll just start calling out your release date, and you do the same for me, even though neither one of us agreed to that on LinkedIn or somewhere else. And it's like, shoot, I guess that's what we have to do. I'm curious though, for you, Varun, do you have any external coaching or accountability? Like because it can be very difficult, especially again, not to say, I mean, somebody like you obviously sounds like was very entrepreneurial in your previous job. You were somebody who I don't think anybody had to chase and follow up, but I get it. Like there's still this sort of sense that you do have deadlines, you do have things you're trying to get done. You don't want to let people down. Those sort of things exist. But now when it is just you, is it just the tactics you just said, or do you look any deeper than that to try to help when it comes to a support group?
I've had always had support my whole life. First, it started by investing in courses from other entrepreneurs. And just
Yep.
that investment of hard earned money was keeping me accountable to get me an ROI. Then I had a couple accountability partners. One was a mentor of mine, one was a peer of mine. We would meet every week, kind of discuss what's happening. That's been going on for, I think, almost 7 years now.
Awesome.
And last year, I also invested in like a business coach.
Mm-hmm.
And for a few months, I think that was also great for helping me move along in the process. This year, and this is something that guys might find interesting, is I have made an intentional move to not invest in any courses or any coaching for this year because I am somebody who would invest in these things at a heartbeat because I knew I was getting an ROI. I knew it has changed my life. So why not just continue doubling down on that investment? But last year, I just realized I was spreading myself out too thin. I had enough information, systems, frameworks that I needed. All it was execution. And I think this year, the intention of just executing without any kind of support is something that I'm testing myself on. I think what I'm going to need very soon in the future is, and this is something that I'm talking to a friend of mine, also a LinkedIn creator who is a psychiatrist or I don't know if it's a clinical psychiatrist or a therapist. I think he's a therapist who writes on LinkedIn, Melvin Verkes. So I'm going to have a conversation with him pretty soon to see how therapy can help like some of these hangups I have with procrastination and stuff like that. So I'm going to test that soon.
Interesting.
It's not going to be this year, but I'm going to take a different angle and go deeper, maybe in the mind, to see what it takes to kind of get to this next level or next version, but not business coaching for this year for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I love what you said, a couple things there, because I can relate, and I'm sure this is what a lot of entrepreneurs, and especially aspiring entrepreneurs, get caught up in, is those blockers that you keep trying to do things and live with them, but unless you could figure out, again, ways, whether it's back to your own tricks on yourself along lines of saying, I've got to do this by this date, I'm telling the world this is going to happen because then it's going to happen. Or I think back to your other thing, it's so easy to, the term that I've heard and I like is action faking. It's so easy, like even the courses and programs, and I worry about this at times myself, or the other next YouTube video, any of these things that we feel like, once I have this, I'm going to have everything I need. But really, it's action that's key. And it's trying to figure out your own, psychology and way of thinking so that you could do that. So I love what you said there, because between the unlock of saying, okay, I'm done. Not that you're done educating yourself. You're done investing in these bigger programs, because what you need right now, you can probably figure out between a chat GPT or a quick call or text to a friend to work through that current, hump that you're going over. And then at the same time, I think the things you mentioned on the therapy front, that's really interesting too, because you're like, okay, some of these mental blocks are just there. They're these deep, walkways that have been carved over time that you got to fill in with the dirt before you can start actually, operating in another way. So changing literally your underlying operating system. So I really love it you said that, because I really think that actually at its core, what you just said there is what so many people who aren't moving forward really need to consider for themselves too. So I appreciate anyway your honesty around those things and how you look at those, because a lot of people want to sound like they have the answers to everything.
I have a lot of hangups towards like mental therapy versus like business coaching or tactics and frameworks. Like I lean heavily towards tactics and frameworks. So I'm actually exploring, and I'm going to talk to this friend and I'm going to just say, here's my three hangups. Do you think these hangups are good, or I mean are they positive invisible scripts, or are they most likely negative invisible scripts, and how do I reframe myself, because I've never
Yeah.
done therapy yet, so I again a lot of hangups for it.
This is great. Well, you just helped set the episode 1 year from now where we figure out that worked or yeah, what you're trying. So, but I think this is it. I think this is the whole piece of entrepreneur in general. It's just like we're trying to solve different problems and out there for others, our own customers. It's like internally, it's like, how are we thinking about that within our own things that we're running into that we have to resolve? Do you see yourself hiring anybody at any point in the future, or do you already have anybody on the team?
I did, yeah, I did work with a VA last year.
Yep.
It was through the same coaching company that I was working with. And so I got a taste of what it is having a VA for like 6 months. But the investment that I said that I'm not making this year was including like continuing with the VA. Again, I just felt that some of these systems came at me too early. I just
Yes.
needed to kind of execute, make sure that I need what do I need that VA for? I think having a strong need, having a charter, having a standard operating procedure, I think was is something that is important for me. So I am going to let pain decide what my next hire is going to be, rather than just okay, yeah, I know I need to hire. Let's figure out who I need to hire. I'm just going to let some pain come through, like okay, I just can't do this anymore. Let's
Yeah.
find somebody to do that particular aspect, just one little aspect, and starting with a contractor or a freelancer and maybe going from there.
I think I might know the answer, Varun, just because of mine and Michael's background at Disney and Netflix and big corps. But I'm curious to hear from you. What did you leverage from your corporate career that helped you expedite where you are now and you're getting your business going?
Oh, so many things. A lot of my training of this entrepreneurship courses was actually applied at my day job. Like so many things. Like I didn't have an understanding of how a sales funnel worked. because I was an automotive engineer doing advanced engineering and research. Had no idea about customer journey, had no idea about sales funnels. I had no idea about how important relationships are to sales, especially in the B2B industry. So I would say the biggest learnings that I've had from there or what I've leveraged is that being a playground for me to learn and test and execute marketing and sales strategies. If I didn't have that, I would have been starting from scratch with Beyond Grad. I don't think I would be where I am in two. I've been productizing for just 13 months now, or yeah, 13 to 15 months. I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't leverage what I had learned in my last job.
So, what advice would you give an aspiring entrepreneur today who's just looking for what their big idea is? What advice would you give? Because obviously you found yours. Took you a while to refine it a little bit, but what advice would you give to them?
I think that's a great question because we all start with dreaming first, right? We all dream about something different than what we are currently doing. I think there are two big groups of people that I was when I was starting out this entrepreneurial journey. One was I don't have an idea of what to do. And the other was, okay, I have an idea. Now what should I do? I think my advice to my younger self, even if I was in the first camp where I did not have any idea what to do, would be to start creating, because invariably you have to do that to kind of make a name for yourself or to even have your voice and your face, your public brand be associated with some idea. You have to create. It can be any social media channel, it can be YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever the case is. You have to start creating, which is why I think the biggest advice I would give to somebody is don't try to over optimize for niche in the beginning, very big or niche, or having a specific idea in the beginning, because the idea and the niche is going to change no matter what you do. I first wanted to write about immigrant journeys. Then I started to write about career growth because I had transitioned from a entry level engineer to a partner at my consulting company. Then I started writing about job search, which is what got me a lot of traction. So you don't know your idea, you don't know your niche, which I think is a great sign. And I would say just start writing about anything that interests you. Nobody is going to be reading it. From the few people who start reading it, that's where you will actually start to zero in on the first idea that you will test. And even in the last 3 years, I have changed my offers and my offerings. I've changed who I make that offer to significantly. So if you are either in the boat of, I don't know what to do, but I want to do something, or in the boat of, I have an idea, now what do I do next? The answer to both those questions, and this is me saying that to my younger self, would be start writing, because I took a lot of years to dream about creating
Yeah.
and just not creating. I would rather have those years back.
That's a great point. And you said a couple of things that are, I think, really important. I can't help but attach what you're saying too, because you and I both play in the career space, people there, to the idea of how a lot of people approach their careers too, is they'll say, here's what I'm going to do. They spend all this time getting a degree, they jump into the job and they keep doing it, even though at that point they might be like, wait, this doesn't feel right. And I think that similarly, as you work to find your niche, it's like just dive in. The skills that you're going to learn in the process are going to generally be transferable, meaning like, copywriting, those type of things, whatever product you offer, but you're going to start evolving. You're going to have more interactions with customers. The customer is going to tell you what they want. And then you're going to be able to shape an offer around that. And eventually you'll be able to shape a refined offer and eventually a new offer, as long as you start doing it in that case. Because if you do look back, as you mentioned with your younger self, that seems like a key piece there was start, kind of publishing, getting yourself out there earlier. And while you said writing, LinkedIn is where you ended up going. If somebody focuses on YouTube and refining a presence there, that's probably, I would say equally acceptable, right? And what you would see is just get your medium, whatever it's going to be, your distribution, and start getting good at it. Start putting in the reps. Now, what else would have you told yourself from, say 10 years ago, when you were still exploring, looking at this? Were there any other big breakthroughs that you had?
I think the breakthrough that I had. I think I'll have to pick a kind of a zone in my creation journey to kind of be more specific. What do you think would be the zone that is most helpful for listeners? So would it be somebody who has already started and then what product to create, or would it be somebody who's creating products and how to scale, or even
That's a great
before that?
Yeah, great point. So here's what I would actually say. I would say that yourself, myself, when we look at it, you had been working at this for this period of time, and now you've had this switch. But I think the switch, at least based on what I've seen from you, has really come over the last couple of years. And what I'm taking away from some of this is obviously the idea that you really started being disciplined about using a platform. But is there anything else in that period of time? Because for the rest of the time, you were still putting in some reps, but they weren't the same focused reps as today. So I just was curious if there was anything more than that. You just really started listening, posting every single day. Was there any other like aha moments or switches for you that maybe you can help another entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneur get to sooner?
And I think you, in framing that question, kind of highlighted what my biggest aha moment was nailing down one social media channel on where I will show up consistently. For me, that was LinkedIn. It meant after 6 videos on YouTube, I had to stop that journey. It
Yeah.
meant that I was not going to go on Instagram. I was not going to go on X or TikTok. I'm going to stick to LinkedIn. The reason why that was an aha moment for me, because after the first 6 or 8 months, I started to know who the top creators were on the platform. It's not that you come on day one and you immediately recognize who the top creators are. It takes you a while. I am still learning of new upcoming creators that I can learn from, and this is year 3 in my journey. Looking at top creators, reverse engineering, what kind of topics they are writing about, how are they writing, what kind of formats were they using, was extremely critical in me creating new posts. That post, based on the reverse engineering of top profiles, got me more attention than the bubble that I was in. I wouldn't call it
Yeah.
bubble, but my access to my community, like my first connections and second connections and stuff like that. But to go beyond that, for LinkedIn to push your content outside of that initial circle, I needed to create like valuable, high quality content, and just focusing on one channel makes it easy. Looking at who the top creators are and reverse engineering how they are doing things is the vital thing as well.
I want to take a step back and I want to ask this question to both of you because I'm curious what both of you would say. Because I had a coaching call yesterday and this question came up. And I'll tell you guys how I answered it, but I'm curious what you guys would have said. This person was saying how they would love to leave their 9 to 5. They don't even know what that business might be. They don't even know if they don't even know if they enjoy content creation. So I'm curious, so for someone like that, they don't even know where that first step is for them if they want to leave the 9 to 5. Like, what advice would you give them? And I don't know, Michael or Varun, who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Michael.
My advice on there would be pretty much what Varun was saying early on. It's like, well, start testing, start putting yourself out there. Can you dedicate an hour a day to wherever it's going to be to get good, to start talking about different things on the platform, to see if you like the platform? It's like if you can't make the time to do that now, then by the time you leave your job, the chances that you're going to make the time to do it, when ironically, it's actually sometimes harder to be more disciplined when you leave your job because now you don't have a set schedule every day. I mean, I'm amazed for me when I did it, where all of a sudden it's like, holy cow, how did I get so much done in a day before? And now I feel like I can't get the tiniest thing done. So my advice in that situation would be that you really just start, like identify, and I think there's some exercise that go through to identify, where that zone might be, and just start posting whatever your channel is going to be around that. And then from there, you'll start to learn the tools, you'll get over the humps, and you'll start to decide whether or not, oh, it was fear maybe that stood in the way of a particular tool you used, and you get comfortable with the tool. Maybe you hate the tool. Maybe you're like, I'm just a short video kind of guy, not a posting kind of guy over here. And that's what I would say as a way to sort of, ease your way, see whether or not it's for you. But I wouldn't leave the job until you actually understood that you can turn the thing that you're looking for into something that gives you signals of, being able to make a living doing it.
That's I would echo a lot of what Michael is saying, and probably Artin, what you kind of referred to as well, because you said that you qualified the question as they don't yet have an idea of what they want to do. When you are sharing that, the clip that came to mind, and this is a very famous clip, which is I think Steffi Graf, the tennis player, is playing, and between points, as she's just bouncing the ball before she serves, a man in the crowd shouts, Steffi Graf, will you marry me? And Steffi, after kind of like a brief pause, and what presence of mind while playing this competitive game, she said, how much money do you have? That would be my answer to that person
That's fair.
is how much
That's
money do
fair.
you have? Like, what kind of runway are you looking out at based on your living situation, your living expenses? I would say that if you have a strong brand, then a runway of a year might be enough for you to kind of test multiple things and see what fits. But if you don't have a brand, then you need a runway of 2 years or probably longer. Do you want to put yourself into that pressure of taking money from the runway that you have? Or do you just want to continue to do your 9 to 5 and probably leverage that to help you accelerate? Like I would be love to be in a position where as somebody who is part of a big family with kids, with parents, a 9 to 5 does give you the opportunity to take some of those funds and accelerate things faster. So my final would be how much money do you have and are you willing to put that on stake?
Yeah. And as a tennis fan, I can say that that actually, is an actual thing that happened. It wasn't scripted for a commercial. It was an actual fan that said it. And funny enough, if I remember correctly, because Steffi Graf was married to Andre Agassi, and at the time she was, man, I think Agassi was in the crowd too when that happened.
And that's true.
uh, but just to tell you guys what I tell the person, again, you guys don't have the context of the entire conversation, but I just told the person that, when you are trying to kind of come up, when you're trying to escape your current situation and you really don't have any ways to think about what to do, when you're surrounded by the same coworkers on a day-to-day basis, the same boss, the same industry, sometimes you're not in the right mindset to actually even start thinking about that next step. So I told them, you got to get out of that circle. Go to a seminar, go to like immerse yourself in certain events that will energize you, that you're surrounded by people that maybe want to do something the same. Go to a creator seminar, go to a startup seminar, go to some other things to just get you energized. And I think that energy will help at least guide you to, I think I want to do this and do that. So that was my direction to them, because I think people that are trying to leave a corporate role, being surrounded by the same people, sometimes it's a big downer because you're not getting infused by new ideas and energy that sometimes a new crowd can give you.
And one thing I'd probably add to that is it's not just the energy that people, it's people specifically who I think are pursuing things that look a little more like what you want to pursue, I think is really what becomes helpful. Because look, I could go to a Tony Robbins and be surrounded by all these people, get hyped up, which is great. And it feels good, but it still comes down to great. Who else in your network that can keep you going? Because when you're within your day job, it's so easy to then just, you be surrounded by the people who are doing whatever they need to do during the day. Once they're off the clock, they're like, let's go get drinks. Let's go do whatever it is. And it's like, no, at that point, that's where you got to clock into your future job that you're building to be able to do there. I also think something else around, all of us, because I think that runway is really important that you said, Varun. But I think one thing with it too is people need to understand where their own strengths lie, because it's not necessarily, a lot of people struggle with some of the discipline and they need to know what it is. And I'll say for myself as an example, I'm one of those who people always consider me, very disciplined and self-driven. But at the same time, part of what drives me at times, I don't like letting people down. So whether or not in my career that was, a boss or customers, whether or not that's customers in real life today, whether that's my team members, oftentimes having those in place helped me to make sure that when I was working on something, like I was moving forward with that. When you don't have some of those, fires moving you, or those things that are going to do it, then you have to figure out how you're going to keep yourself moving forward when none of that's around you anymore, because you have the runway to be comfortable for a while. Like there's a danger sometimes of comfortable. So it's like, when I hear all this too, I'm like, yeah, I think it's how all of these intersect together, which is probably why it's so hard for people in doing it. But I think it's like that first step. I would probably say, as I've heard some of this too, is who's the group of people who are doing what you want to do that you could get yourself around? Because that's probably going to then start pointing you in the right direction. That's probably the easiest first thing I think somebody can do out of everything that we said, since it can otherwise probably feel a little bit overwhelming to try to find the right thing. And I think this is why right now, and I know I've gone down paths, and I think I've seen each of you probably do the same, where this guru over here says this, but someone over here says yes, and you spend your time chasing those, when all we really think we all know now is that we needed just to be disciplined early on in that one thing, and we've probably been a lot further along. So
Absolutely. I agree with what both of you have said, because I relate to it. I don't know anybody in my circle would know people like Seth Godin or Tim Ferriss or Ramin
right.
Sethi. Nobody knows them. I
Yeah.
would say the same thing for myself. I don't know probably the top people in the real estate market, because that's where some people want to go. So, Artin, to your point, I had to go out of my influences to kind of even start to learn what a freaking sales funnel was, what is inbound, outbound marketing.
Right.
I had no clue about any of that as an engineer. And to your point, Michael, I think entrepreneurship is such a dichotomy, because you have to be your own manager.
Yeah.
The manager Varun would rate the performer Varun so badly that you have to learn to play that dual role. So yeah, that takes a while as well.
Yeah, it's a good point. I want to take it back to something else you had said here too, when you were talking about one of the key breakthroughs that you had was when you started really like reverse engineering and getting to know some of the other great creators out there. And I remember at one point you had shared with me kind of, this way that you had broken this down and how you were really looking at the posts and understanding what worked. And I think that work that you did there, and I admit, and Art and I right now, we're about in a couple of weeks, we're going to get together and finally do that around actually like this podcast to really like say, okay, great. We have, almost 2 years under our belt, but like, let's really hone in and how can we look at this differently? And when I saw the way that you broke that out and that you were really looking at the commonalities and what was working, what wasn't, and this wasn't necessarily a matter of you like looking to like copy exactly what they did, but it was a matter of being like, look, there's some sort of a unspoken rules or approach that these people have. And if I could figure that out, and I think that's gold. And I think it's so interesting because we spend our times looking at that next book or video or whatever it is to try to tell us, when what really is going to tell us is looking at what's in the market right now, how it's performing and what you're going to do. And so I loved seeing how you did that. And I can completely get how that changed, kind of your approach and how you're doing it, even if you still called it a grind before, because it doesn't mean it's easy, but it's doing the thing that most other people won't do, like that research that then goes into the pre-planning. I think makes such a big difference in, as you've said, come across, have you hit 75,000 almost here. So
Yeah, that reverse engineering process that I shared with you and Artin last time was an Excel sheet that I had created. And this probably a lot of listeners would kind of benefit from this. Is I had learned from my mentors to kind of decode what's working well on your chosen platform. And the
yep.
way to decode that was I created an Excel sheet where I would go and look into a creator that I admire and look at their past posts. Anything which I felt was doing more than their average kind of engagement, average comments, I would take a note of that. What was the idea? How many likes? How many comments? How many reposts? Um, what was the hook that they used? And I did that for almost 10 to 15 creators. What happens is that now you have depth and you also have the width, because, oh, creator A also wrote about interview questions. Creator C also wrote about it and it went well. Creator F also wrote about it. Okay, this is a no brainer. I have to write my angle of interview questions. To take this further, that just does not stop. Just last week, I created this massive file. This time I was trying to make my design better. So I was seeing what kind of different designs people are using on the platform.
Nice.
And I realized that it all boiled down to four different key types. And I have probably, kid you not, 50 examples of each type so that I know that next time I know which one to create, I have like a swipe file of
Yeah.
inspiration that I could take from. They all boil down to right now on LinkedIn. It all boils down to either having a cheat sheet or kind of like a framework or a carousel or a quote. Quotes are going very viral on LinkedIn, which I'm not a big fan of, but that's what the platform is right now, and you have to kind of play the game.
It's so funny. I feel like quotes have like this 3-year thing.
Yeah,
Like every 3 years they come back, and then people get tired of them, and then they go away. They come back.
I think it is interesting. Like you are fighting with yourself because some of these kind of frame or some of these types of posts are not things that you would like. Now
Yeah.
you can say, okay, I'm not going to do that and be okay with the results. Or I am like, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to see if it sucks or not. And I'm going to see if it gets me results or not. Sometimes the results can help you get over the sucky feeling that you have. Sometimes the
Yes.
sucky feeling stays and you say, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore. That's my relationship with viral quotes right now on LinkedIn. I've tried it a couple times, but the sucky feeling is more than the results. But there are other four ways that you can still create content, and the reverse engineering is still happening. I don't think it ever stops. I don't think it ever stops, even with the big creators, because only when you reverse engineer many creators, you realize they're all using their same ideas.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Why
And
not us, right? Why should we sit in a high horse, say, oh, I'm not going to write about that idea, or I'm not going to use that hook format. They are all doing it and they are at the top of their game. So I don't
so
want to be left behind.
No, so true. And I think that is, again, if people could just walk away with that and approach it in that way, because even for Art and I, like as we look at, your, like we admit we haven't done a good enough job at that, and it shows in how we've approached it. And instead what happens is sometimes we'll go for, I won't call it the quick win, but the thing where we're like, oh, this sounds like something fun to, write on. And then all of a sudden, I'm messaging Art and being like, well, that one didn't connect with anyone. And it's like, no, because we're just doing these things out of thin air, and then we're combining them. I've been posting a little bit more frequently, so I've been getting more feedback. Artin, but he'll be like, "Oh yeah, well, why did you pair it with that image instead of this one?" I'm like, "Because I don't like posting pictures of myself, And it's like, but again, people are posting pictures of themselves, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't feel like it has anything to do with it. That's just the nature of,
Yeah.
There's a connection there, which makes sense from marketing perspective too. But it's just, this is how the platform's playing. For some, it's also the video, side of it. Carousels can do really well. But I think the point is, what is your area of focus? What is happening in that? What does those audience members respond to? Because again, I got to tie some things back to career. It's like something I talk to my clients about when it comes to their boss. Stop trying to talk to your boss the way that you like to, be spoken to. Talk to your boss the way they want to, because when you do, then you're going to make the connection, and then things are going to be more likely to happen versus you trying your method and expecting them to understand you when instead they understand, them.
The
Art,
audience is giving the signal. This is what we like to hear.
yeah.
Now
And
either
it's
you can give that, or you can say, I'm going to just stick to my lane and
right.
find my niche. I think it all boils down to, if you are getting enough results from staying within your lane and within your niche, I
Yep.
think you can be happy with that. If you're
Yeah.
not, then figure it out, because nobody
Jump on
else
the
is coming to
bandwagon.
save you.
You gotta
Yeah.
jump on the bandwagon, basically. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, my, Michael has that issue too. Posting selfies. At first, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm like, why am I posting a selfie of myself that has nothing to do with the content itself? But then I was looking around, I'm like, wow, everybody's doing it. It actually works. So it took me some time, but once I was able to mentally break from that, I know it works. It works. So I'm trying to get Michael to break that now.
Yeah. Even though at times I'm like, why do people need to see a picture of me and my family? I'm like, why does that help this? But I get it at the same time, but it's just one of those things that I think a lot of us have these, no, there's got to be this way, this other way. And it's like, stop trying to,
Overthink it.
yeah, you can break the rules once you fully understand the rules, but stop trying to break the rules when you don't understand the rules. And I think that's where it's not even only on, when it comes to your audience in this sort of way, but it also, I think, just comes down to in general, anything that you're trying to do, create, or build. It's like, I know people would have said Apple, Steve Jobs would have told the user what they needed. That's pretty rare. And, I think it also skips a lot of, things where I'm sure he understood, and was still incorporating that. But yes, in the end, he would decide what would, actually get to the audience, well, he and his team. But I think people have to really listen to the audience. And the best way to do that, if you don't want to spend a year listening to them and refining your own, look at what other people are doing. And anyway, I love how you've done that. I love that you said that, and we're emphasizing it here, probably killing it, because people make this mistake probably the most. I have anyway.
And I don't use my pictures quite often, maybe once a month, maybe once
Yeah.
2 months. And it's okay. You won't be using every format, but you have to use some variety of formats. Like
That's
if
right.
you don't use a lot of selfies or videos, then use cheat sheets, use quotes,
Yeah.
use something to kind of progress. Again, the reverse engineering showed me that each creator has their own style. Like they
Yep.
double down on 3 to 4 post frameworks, and then they'll do the others on and off here and there, which
Yeah.
is something that we can all learn from as well. You don't need to do a selfie as well, a video as well, a quote as well, a cheat sheet as well. Do
Yeah.
some kind of a combo of that.
Would you say that it helps once you figure out what that's going to be for you to be consistent because your audience is expecting it, or does that matter less?
That's an interesting question. I think the Steve Jobs thing that you mentioned, right, where I feel that he was definitely the best innovator out there, but he was also listening to customers in the sense that if he was not listening to his customers, he was listening to other customers. Like people were already buying cell phones. He didn't create the first cell phone. He created the most innovative cell phone or
Mhm.
yeah, innovative mobile device. So I think a light version of that or a poor man's version of that is keep your tried and tested format, but you can't just rely on that. I think you have to evolve. Like recently, I've started to do cheat sheets. I have never done that in the first 2.5 years, but
Yeah.
now I can see the value of it. Recently, just created 3 last week. So you have to just, and then LinkedIn takes its own time to kind of adjust to your change as well. Every content platform will take time. So I know that when I'm experimenting these new frameworks, I'm not going to get as many impressions as I would have gotten normally. I'm hoping, but that once LinkedIn understands my audience fit again, I cross the initial kind of a average, initial kind of a medium,
Yeah.
which is a test. We'll
Yeah.
we'll see.
That makes sense. And I think with that, it's kind of like they talk about with advertising in general. I might get my number slightly off, but it's like, once you find an ad that works, let that be whatever 70% of your content. And then I think it's something like, maybe it's 80%. Let 10% be little tweaks to that content, and then let the other 10% be big swings. And I
Mhm.
think it's very much the same with this, because you're getting it out there and it's like, okay, if you know what's working for them, keep doing that, but start tweaking it, make it even better, and then start testing these other things that for all you know are gonna blow up with them. But what's interesting when you mention the what'd you call them? Not infographics.
Cheat sheets
Cheat
or
sheets. Yeah, I've noticed that for a while, and I don't think I call it denial, but I haven't moved forward with that as much as I probably should have. Even though I'm like, I think the reason I did it is I'm looking at some of these people out there who post them, and I'm like, my mind is like, but that's a lot of the stuff they had wasn't new content. And I think I struggled because I'm always like, well, why are you just putting something out there and recycling it in the way that it is? But look, they cycled it out in a way that made people look at it in a way they didn't before. Then those often gets lots of reposts and shares because somebody went ahead and added a lot of value by packing this together and taking 8 time management frameworks into one thing and put it out there. But I think my own feelings around that, my own invisible scripts got in the way because I'm just like, but it just, now I'm just like, all right, you know what? If you can't beat them, join them. I'm like, create some of those because they are valuable to people. And we can't assume just because we might know those, kind of like when you started dropping names before with Seth Godin, some of these other Tim Ferrisses out there, not everybody knows them. So when they get presented with the stuff, it could be through you. And that's absolutely fine. And that's something I've had to come to terms with a little bit, too.
I mean, I think that's why like templates and all that work so well because you're taking a time to do something that even though it's out there, it would take you time to do it, but somebody else has taken a time to do it. So you're like, yeah, I want that. Drop whatever is in the comments and then wait for it to arrive. But the irony, and Michael and I have laughed about this, half the time when I comment when I drop whatever they need me to drop in the comments, I actually never get what they.
Oh yeah, for those ones,
comment.
that's the other thing.
Half the time, I'm like, "Where is it? Where is it?" My guess is they got so many DMs that they just can't get back to everybody. But that's, I find it funny that happens. And to me, I always back at Disney. I remember a presentation by marketing, and I don't know if Michael, you remember this, but that stuck with me because it's very relatable here. They said marketing in many cases is the packaging of a product. So sure, there's coffee. Well, if you take coffee beans, add some cream on top of it, put, some cinnamon, put it in a nice cup, now you get a Starbucks coffee. And now you can charge, 6 times more. And that always stuck with me because that's kind of what this is happening. It's packaging things together in a way that seems more valuable versus just grinding some coffee at home and saying, there it is.
And I think it's a little bit of to what Varun you were alluding to early on, even when you talked about your own offer and the refinement of your offer, because at the same time, granted, maybe your offer changes slightly, but sometimes that core product it's still the coffee, but you're figuring out how to pair it with these other things because then somebody's like, well, that's a lot more valuable than, the coffee I'd brew at home or something along those lines. So
Sometimes you are not even changing the coffee, right? You're changing the mug that you are using, or you are
exactly.
changing the quality of the sleeve. At the end, you are understanding what the customer wants and see, okay, how do I get closest to perfection where this seems like a no brainer? And with the point about people writing the same thing but recycling them in new ways, I think I do that a lot. And that has been one of the things about like the growth. What I have noticed is that when you create some visuals or when you create a photo or whatever, the people who share it feel that people will be impressed by the one who have shared it. So let me say that better,
Yeah.
which is that I would like to share things that make me look smart. And a lot of times, any posts that have really good visuals, like a framework or something like that with examples, if it makes me look smart, I'm more likely to reshare it, which is where that the viral growth comes
That's a
from.
great point.
So a lot of time, these refreshed visuals, different styles of saying the same thing, kind of help with that.
That's actually a really great point. And it also comes down to the comments people leave at times too. Like we're all looking at significance. We get significance when we reshare, that to our network and are like, hey, look at the stuff I'm looking at. When we leave a great comment, not an AI comment, a great comment, that's helpful. Like all of those are back to the individual. So what I'm taking away from this in some ways that I think is important, that I hadn't thought about in this way is it's like we're giving people the vehicle or whatever it is. We're giving them the, even if it is something that we are surfacing because we have found before, because we're surfacing it in some ways because it also provides us our own significance. But when we can look for those things, those are the type of things that make people want to engage a bit more. Well, that and maybe controversy, but same thing.
I think to continue this further in terms of, the aha moments, and we are talking about like content and we are talking about offers. One of the big aha moments for me, let's say in the last year, has been looking at the sales funnel as a service funnel. And this, I think, comes from spirituality and everybody's spirituality practice as well, right? Spirituality is
Yeah.
big no matter where you are, whatever you follow, it's big on service. And often, at least for me, service was always felt disjointed with profit and asking for money. So service was always associated with free. So I had to change that, obviously, because I don't think that is true. Because one example that comes to mind is in olden Indian times, there were these schools called Gurukul. Gurukul were these forest based hardcore education schools. By hardcore, I don't mean tough as in physically tough like a Navy SEAL, but it
Yeah.
had like some physicality to it, some mental things, some emotional things, some spiritual things. People had to leave their homes for multiple years, go to these forest schools. So there was a high level of commitment required for these teachers to serve these students. The students had to make a high commitment. You can do that in the modern time as well. And this high commitment can come from money because that's the easiest way to kind of put commit in yourself, to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm trying to look to match my aims of serving and merge it with the business by using the service funnel where I will serve people for free. With my content, I'm going to strive to have it very actionable, very valuable. I will strive to serve people for a low commitment exchange of their email, them coming to a boot camp. I will serve them for a mid level of commitment, which is paying for a cohort based course where I'm teaching them something, and then serve them with a high commitment. If you want to just transform how you're doing things, I'm going to help you with a high ticket offer, a one on one support, or whatever the case is. I think that has also been transformational because a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you have to get used to charging people and sometimes charging people more money than what you have earned from your day job in terms of per hour value. And that can come at a very big conflict with, your vision of serving people, of doing something outside of yourself. So, my way of just thinking through this, which has helped me immensely charge what I have charged for last year and for this year and going forward, is looking at serving people for low, mid, and high commitment and then charging appropriately using that commitment as a way to kind of drive the business.
I love how you broken that out because I hadn't really heard of this concept of service funnel versus sales funnel, and it it lets it sit a lot better with somebody like myself too, because like I don't know, even when it comes to leadership, I think of more servant leadership and this sort of thing, and there's this approach to it when you think about it like that that feels, I don't want to say less dirty, but less dirty. It feels like no, truly, and like it's the acknowledgement that look, not everybody you're going to help at that higher end of your service funnel, but you may help a lot of people here, and that's great too. And when you put yourself in that position, that's good. You're out there to try to help as many people as you can. It just turns out that certain levels of that help are going to require a higher cost to people, but at the same time, the value you're going to return is going to theoretically be greater than what it would be at that lower level. Although I say that, and somebody could be completely changed by the lower level too. So but I love the way that you said that, and I definitely want to start adopting that a lot more because it lets me also approach my funnels in a way that's not looking at just how do I maximize the psychology around these and the conversions. You're thinking about it in terms of no, how do I speak to, whether you call them your friends, whatever you want to call them, just your followers, the people out there, and actually really just try to maximize the value to them. Because if you can do that, then when you do have the sales, that happen out of it, it's just an extension of continuing to try to offer service and value. That's how I interpret it. Hopefully I did all right taking away what you did because I really like that. It's eye opening.
That's perfectly it. It's like I'm going to have these different levels of service. You choose what you want to use at that
Yeah.
particular time. You choose what your level of commitment is in my world. Like you can be very committed in a different world. In this world, in the beyond grad world, in the world that I'm creating, you choose
Yeah.
your commitment level. I know that I'm going to serve you appropriately and you're going to see results appropriately based on the level of commitment you want.
Right.
But I don't want to kind of always think about pushing people down the sales funnel, which
Yeah.
again drives business. But at least if I have changed my outlook, I'm looking at my free content as well in a way that what's the best way to serve people.
Right. I think it's great. It actually has me thinking about that in terms of, I think even more like as I look to acquire business as well, like home service based business, others. I think that's where a lot of them like fall apart because they're just thinking about it every time in terms of sales conversion, and they're not actually thinking about how they become that regular sort of part of your, I don't want to say your life because we don't want to be intrusive, but the idea is how do you just keep adding value because you want to see them do well, and then that also happens to put you front of mind when they're looking for a solution in that area. So that's great. So where is your business going then from here? Like, what are the next steps of how you plan to continue this sort of, giant leap into full-time entrepreneurship?
I think my first goal is to find the product that I can use to serve my audience really well. I have to still find that product market fit for a mid commitment product. The reason why I say that is I have found a fit with the high commitment product, which is me helping somebody one on one.
Yep.
I want to, like I said, have services at different levels of commitment. The mid commitment level, where I don't know if it's a cohort based program or a program where you have different options again based on what you want to do. I want to find a product market fit with an offer in that level. Right now, I'm testing out an interview focused program called 21-day interview mastery.
Mhm.
Whoever wants to improve their interviewing skills, I have like a 21-day jam packed program to help people do that. I
Nice.
want to see if that is my mid commitment vehicle. Once I am able to have a model, a service based funnel for job search, I want to start to create a service based funnel for entrepreneurship, starting with side entrepreneurship and hopefully getting into full time entrepreneurship, just like I did. I just
Yeah.
want to share what my insights are, wrap my head around that. But I think it is critical for me to first build a full service based funnel, learn whatever I need to learn, and then start creating then the service funnel for the entrepreneurship side.
Yeah. That makes sense. Got it. I was wondering if you might eventually move into that area. It feels like a natural way for it to go. So awesome. And if people wanted to reach out to you right now, what's the best way for them to do so?
Couple of places you can always send me an email at varun at beyondgrad.com. I read and respond to mostly all emails that are not fishing for my for my service or for my business. That's one way to reach out to me. If you want to follow what I write daily, what I share, then LinkedIn is the best place to go. LinkedIn,
Okay.
Varun Negandhi. I think I'm the only bald Varun Negandhi out there, so it should be very easy to find.
It's a good way to describe it. That's hilarious. And what if somebody right now is like, you know what? I know he hasn't built out an offering on teaching me to do this, but would he actually coach me right now if I said I'd still pay him to help refine his program?
I would love to say yes, but my answer would be no.
Yeah.
I
But
think I think there is value in teaching while doing. So
yeah.
I think I'm missing out on that part. I'm missing out on sharing. Like right now, beginner's mindset is a great way to create an audience. So I know I'm missing out on it. The only reason why I am intentionally missing out on it or an opportunity to train somebody is my all my energies are going into building out this
Yeah.
running service based funnel for the job search side. And even then, I feel I'm not keeping up with my goals on that side.
Well, really what that was is that was just another way to reveal to people that the other key to success and being able to leave your full-time job for entrepreneurship, which is knowing what to say yes or no to. So you passed.
That was a
But
test.
that's great. It's really hard because those type of things do come up, and then it could be the shiny object, and I completely get your focus on it, and I love it, and that tells me that you're cooking up some great things to come as you continue to refine the offer that works. Why abandon it to start working on something else until you really get this dialed in? So love it.
One of the products that I think I would be good at creating would be how to start writing on LinkedIn as a 9 to 5 employee. I did that. I
Yeah.
know ways to do that now. So I know that if I create a program like that, I will be able to share the best of what I know. But then again, you can't, I mean, it's just hard to get to everything.
Yeah. Well, with that one actually too, I absolutely can see how that becomes probably an easier next product for even people who are currently, followers of yours because or connections, because in that scenario, some people even want to use that for their general careers as they look to grow that. Then it obviously can pivot into also building out for whatever you're going to pivot to next. In fact, that's a great reason to do it. Art and I have talked about this too, where it's like, if you just start doing that, like we know some people within our industry, media industry, who they built out great set of connections on there. And it's pretty amazing because they're also the type that if ever they are in search for a job or anything like that, they've set themselves up as such a clear expert in things out there that it's a lot easier to do. And you guarantee, not just guarantee, it has literally, for some people that come to my mind right now, turned into them then jumping into consulting eventually as their next leg of their career, because people saw what they were because they put it out there all the time in that way. So I looking forward to when you do decide to have the time for that. I think that'll be when you grow your team in general, VAs, whatever it looks like in the future, so you could scale yourself beyond.
There are
Good
four
stuff.
types of candidates, four types of job search candidates in this world. There's the invited, people who just get the red carpet treatment, like Sam Altman when he was fired from OpenAI or left. I don't remember.
Yeah, right.
Um, the second tier is the headhunted. The third tier is the contenders, and the fourth tier is the maximizers. They have to do everything and have luck to get a job. The only way to go up on these levels of tiers is to have relationships, have a public brand. So the stronger your public brand and relationships, the higher you go, and the easier job search experience and future opportunities become.
It's a great way to put it. Have you ever broken that out and put it down on a percentage of where people normally fall on any of your posts?
I
'Cause
don't think I would be able to do a good job at breaking down the percentage of people without knowing each and every one like intimately. But I think that like example of just how social media works. I think this is one of the most important concepts for my mentees to learn, and I teach that in my program. But if I write a post on it, nobody wants to read that. Everybody wants top tools for resumes, top tools for interview guides. But I think a lot of this gets just hidden on social media. But you get the opportunity to teach them once they commit themselves to learning from
That's a that's a great point too. And what you just said right there, once more, I know for me personally, and I do think that becomes that challenge oftentimes is yes, what you teach once they're ready to learn it is different from what it sounds like you might otherwise preach if you're out there saying it, if people aren't ready to have that yet. So I think that's a great point. I admit when I asked that question too, it's because I think most people fall into the maximizer, like based on how you described it. And most people probably wouldn't like to think of themselves in there. They'd like to think of themselves more in those upper categories, but it's just one of those interesting, things for me. So I'm one of those geeks who would absorb that chart. You'll get a like from me if it ever happens, but and a comment. No, anyways,
most
awesome.
of the people I work with are contenders. That's what I have found. All the right information, all the right experience, just having built a brand or high level relationships.
That makes sense, which is also such a much more optimistic way to look at it too. I like that because it just shows it's just a little, these slight tweaks will put you into these other areas. So thank you so much. This has been very valuable. We ourselves have learned a lot, and it's been great to again watch your journey progress. And based on our track now, maybe 2 years from now, if you have time for us, we'll be coming back again. Forget 2 years. 2 years was keeping it on the original game. We'll say 1 year, because 1 year, I can only imagine what you're going to do. But I would love to, again, have you back again and talk about this journey, and to put the pressure on you so that everybody knows when you come back again, we're all expecting big things. Big things. Yeah.
I hope so. We share a kinship. I think when you start a hard thing together, you kind of build that kinship. I'm always there for you guys.
Yeah. Awesome. We appreciate it. We love it. And again, can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you so much.
And it's an honor to be here as well. I wanted to add that.